She criticized the CEO in the CEO's own job interview.
Wait, she said it out loud and still somehow got fast-tracked.
I am proper mortified just thinking about it, honestly.
Inspired by the kind of story you'd find on Reddit, today's tale begins with a bold claim. Sophie walked into the most important job interview of her life and somehow managed to insult the CEO before she even sat down.
I want to make something very clear. I did not mean to insult anyone. What happened was 100% Jake's fault.
Okay, so technically, yes, I was involved, but honestly, I was trying to help. That's the key word here. Help.
Right, let's wind back to the beginning. Sophie had spent weeks preparing for a job interview at a large marketing firm in London. The role was head of client relations, a senior position, serious salary, the whole thing. She was nervous but ready.
I had done everything properly. I'd researched the company, I knew their key accounts, that means their most important clients. I'd pressed my blazer. I'd practiced my answers in the mirror for 3 nights running.
She had like a whole spreadsheet, color-coded. I saw it. It was honestly kind of impressive and also slightly terrifying.
Dead right, it was impressive. This was a big deal. Head of client relations means you manage the relationship between the company and their biggest clients. Naught to laugh about.
The evening before the interview, Sophie asked Jake to help her run through a mock interview, a practice session where Jake would pretend to be the interviewer and ask difficult questions.
And I was so good at it. I was like really leaning into the role. I wore a tie. I found a tie from somewhere. I don't even own ties, and I sat at the kitchen table and I went full corporate mode.
He looked like he was about to auction a house. It was not professional, but fine, we cracked on.
Jake had done some research of his own. He had looked up the company online and found a recent news article about their management structure. He wanted to prepare Sophie for tough questions about the leadership team.
Okay, so I read that the company had done this big restructure, like a reorganization of how the whole business is managed. And they'd brought in a new CEO about 6 months ago. And the article was not kind about this person.
What did it say?
It said the new CEO had a very, quote, hands-off management style, which in the article basically meant she didn't really know what was going on day to day. The journalist called her, and again, this is not my words, micromanagement averse to the point of being absent.
Which is a polite way of saying useless, like.
That is, yeah, okay, basically. So I told Sophie, look, if they ask about leadership, just say you prefer a proactive line manager. Someone hands-on. It'll show you're motivated and self-sufficient.
For learners, a line manager is the person directly above you at work, the one who oversees your day-to-day tasks and performance. And proactive means taking action before being asked, not waiting for someone else to lead. Sophie filed this advice away. The next morning, she arrived at the office.
The building was proper smart, glass everywhere. One of those receptions where the person behind the desk looks at you like you've wandered in off the street. I signed in, got my visitor badge, and waited. Dead calm, focused.
She texted me from the lobby. She said, and I quote, I feel like a CEO myself, which is funny in hindsight.
Sophie was shown into a meeting room and introduced to her 2 interviewers, the hiring manager for the role and someone from the HR department. The interview began well. Questions about her CV, her previous work experience, how she handled conflict in the workplace.
I was nailing it, honestly. All my prep was paying off. They were nodding along, writing things down. You know when you get that feeling the interview is going well. I had that feeling.
I knew it was going well because she didn't text me panicking, and that's always a good sign with Sophie.
Cheers, Jake.
Then came a question about management style. The hiring manager leaned forward and said, and this is important, we've had some changes at the top recently. How do you feel about working within a company that's going through a period of transition?
And I thought, brilliant, this is exactly what Jake prepped me for. So I said, absolutely, I thrive in changing environments. I'm very self-sufficient and I actually work best when I have a proactive line manager who's engaged with the team's workload. I find that a hands-off approach at senior leadership level, where the person at the top isn't really across the day-to-day operations, can create confusion and lower staff morale.
Okay, so on paper, that answer is actually really good. Like, that is a solid, confident, well-structured answer.
On paper it is.
The hiring manager smiled, then glanced sideways at the HR representative, then looked back at Sophie, then said very carefully, "That's interesting. I should mention our CEO is actually sitting in on the second half of this interview. She'll be joining us in about 5 minutes."
I felt my entire soul leave my body.
Oh no, wait, she was already in the building.
Not just in the building, Jake. In the corridor. I could see her through the glass wall of the meeting room. She was standing right there talking to someone, and she had this look on her face, and I thought, she's heard me. She has 100% heard me through the glass.
For the record, and this is a key workplace English phrase, when someone is described as being across the day-to-day operations, it means they're fully informed and involved in what's happening at ground level in the business. Sophie had essentially said, in a job interview, that the CEO was not across her own company, out loud, in a glass room.
I mean, the glass room detail really is the cherry on top, isn't it?
I wanted to die, Jake. Proper wanted the floor to open up.
The CEO entered the room 30 seconds later. She shook Sophie's hand, sat down, opened her notepad, and said, completely straight-faced, "I heard you value a proactive line manager. Good, so do I."
She said that? Oh, honestly, that's kind of amazing. Like she just walked right into it and owned it.
It was the most stressful 20 minutes of my life. She asked me about stakeholder management. You know, managing relationships with all the different people who have an interest in the business, clients, investors, internal teams. And I was answering, but inside I was just screaming.
Stakeholder management is a critical skill in client relations. A stakeholder is anyone with a stake, an interest or investment in how a business performs. Sophie knew this, of course. She'd prepared thoroughly. But knowing your vocabulary and being able to speak clearly when a CEO is staring at you after you've called her absent, those are two different things.
I kept second-guessing every word. She asked about my approach to performance reviews, where a manager formally assesses how well an employee is doing, and I just kept thinking, is this a trap? Is every question a trap now?
Performance reviews? Yes. Okay, so those are like your boss sits you down, looks at your targets, looks at what you've actually done, and basically gives you a score for how you've been doing. They can be dead awkward even when you haven't insulted anyone.
Imagine having one with a woman you told was disengaged from her own company before you even got the job.
The interview wrapped up. The CEO stood, thanked Sophie for her time, said the team would be in touch regarding next steps, the follow-up actions after an interview, and left. Sophie sat there for a moment in silence.
The hiring manager looked at me and went, "You handled that well." And I said, "Did I?" And she said, "Honestly, she's asked us to fast-track your application."
Wait, fast track. That means move it to the top of the pile, right? Like skip ahead in the process.
It means exactly that. Apparently the CEO respected that I had a strong, clear point of view and didn't crumble when confronted. Her words, her actual words. I got a second interview the following Tuesday.
So you called the CEO useless and got promoted through the process faster. Honestly, that is the most unhinged success story I have ever heard.
I did not call her useless. I implied in general terms that a hands-off approach to senior leadership could affect staff morale, which is a valid point, which she agreed with.
For what it's worth, and this is the part that makes this story genuinely interesting to me, Sophie's comment was technically accurate. The CEO had already been working to improve her management style after that press coverage. Sophie had, entirely by accident, validated a concern the CEO was already trying to address.
So she walked in, accidentally read the room better than anyone and got fast-tracked. Because of my prep.
You fed me an article from a business blog and told me to sound opinionated, Jake. I nearly had a cardiac event in a glass box in central London.
But you got the second interview.
I did get the second interview,
And with that, the glass box, the CEO, the accidental management critique, and the unexpected fast track, that is where we leave today's story.
If that made you laugh or cringe, or both at the same time, drop us a like. It genuinely helps more than you know.
Follow us so you never miss another story like this one. There's a new one every single day.
Subscribe to English Through Stories, new episodes every day, and your English will thank you for it.
See you on the next one. Drop us a like.
Hit follow and never miss a story.
Subscribe to English Through Stories. Find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. See you on the next episode.